While Americans were cruising in Corvettes and Mustangs, reveling in chrome, horsepower, and the freedom of the open road, something very different was happening behind the Iron Curtain. In the shadowy world of communism, car design wasn't driven by market demand or consumer dreams. It was dictated by the state. These weren't just vehicles, they were political tools, rolling statements of control, conformity, and sometimes bizarre ambition. While we were taught to fear the red menace, communist countries were quietly building their own versions of automotive progress, often strange, occasionally impressive, and always a little offbeat. This is your backstage pass to the wildest communist concept cars ever made, products of a system where creativity had to survive inside a cage. So get ready as we uncover the most bizarre, brilliant, and baffling communist concept cars of the last 75 years. You won't believe what almost hit the roads. Number 12. ZIL 2906 Screw Drive Amphibious. The ZIL 2906 Screw Drive Amphibious, developed in the USSR in 1975, was a radical solution to a uniquely Soviet problem: retrieving cosmonauts from remote frozen terrain. Built by the Zavod Imeni Likhacheva Design Bureau, it featured a screw-propelled drive system, two massive aluminum augers rotating in opposite directions that allowed it to traverse snow, swamp, and water with surprising agility. Unlike conventional tracked vehicles, the ZIL 2906 could crawl, pivot, and even float, making it ideal for Siberian tundra and marshes where no wheeled vehicle could survive. Its top speeds were impressive for such a niche machine: 45 km per hour on snow, 20 km per hour in swamp, and 16 km per hour on water. Measuring 4.9 meters in length and weighing around 2,000 kilograms, it was powered by a MEMZ 967A engine and could operate for up to 6 hours in extreme conditions. The vehicle was not standalone. It was transported atop a ZIL 4906 Bluebird truck and deployed only when terrain became impassable. Once offloaded hydraulically, it would begin its mission to locate and retrieve Soyuz capsules and their crews. Only 5 units were produced between 1975 and 1979, with a slightly refined successor, the ZIL 29061, appearing later. Despite its alien appearance and limited production, the ZIL 2906 remains one of the most technically audacious concept vehicles ever built under communist rule. It wasn't just a Cold War oddity, it was a functional, purpose-built machine that embodied the Soviet obsession with conquering nature through engineering. Number 11. NAMI 0284. The NAMI 0284, unveiled in 1987 by the USSR's Central Scientific Research Automobile and Automotive Engines Institute, was a futuristic minivan prototype that looked straight out of Star Trek. Dubbed Debut 1, it was designed as a compact urban transport concept during the late Soviet era, when designers were experimenting with aerodynamic forms and modular interiors. Its smooth rounded body, flush-mounted windows, and sloped nose gave it a shuttlecraft-like appearance, radically different from the boxy Soviet cars of the time. Technically, the NAMI 0284 was powered by a modest VAZ 1111 two-cylinder engine with a displacement of 644 cc, producing 28 horsepower at 5,500 RPM. Despite its small engine, the vehicle was lightweight at just 730 kilograms, thanks to its compact dimensions: 3,685 millimeters in length, 1,550 millimeters in width, and 1,370 millimeters in height, with a 2,360 millimeter wheelbase. These proportions made it ideal for urban maneuverability, though it was never intended for mass production. The concept emphasized interior space efficiency and futuristic ergonomics, with a cabin layout that prioritized visibility and passenger comfort. It was showcased at Soviet auto exhibitions as a vision of what personal transport could look like in a more technologically advanced socialist future. However, like many NAMI prototypes, it remained a one-off experiment. The NAMI 0284 stands today as a rare artifact of Soviet design ambition. an imaginative leap toward modernity that never escaped the gravitational pull of bureaucratic inertia and economic constraints. Number 10. GAZ M20 PBA Sport. The GAZ M20 PBA Sport was a sleek, streamlined prototype born in the 1950s Soviet Union, a country where motorsports were officially banned by government decree in 1948. Based on the standard GAZ M20 PBA sedan, the sport variant was developed by engineers at the Gorky Automobile Plant and the affiliated Torpedo Sports Club to compete in clandestine domestic races. With foreign racing technology outlawed, Soviet designers had to innovate using local platforms, and the PBA Sport was their boldest attempt. The car retained the original M20's 2.1-liter inline-4 engine, but underwent extensive aerodynamic modifications. Designers removed protruding elements like fenders, license plates, and bumpers, and enclosed the wheels with fairings to reduce drag. Some versions featured transparent plastic canopy-style additions to improve airflow, though these often compromised driver visibility. The body was smoothed and lowered, with a custom undertray to enhance stability at speed. Chief designer Alexei Smolin, a specialist in hydrodynamics and aircraft design, led the effort to transform the PBA into a high-speed machine. His background in snowmobiles, amphibious vehicles, and propeller-driven craft informed the car's radical shape and airflow management. Though never mass-produced, the PBA Sport was tested in unofficial competitions and internal trials, achieving speeds far beyond the capabilities of standard Soviet sedans. The GAZ M20 PBA Sport remains a rare glimpse into the suppressed ambitions of Soviet automotive engineering, a sleek outlaw born in a system that feared speed, competition, and Western influence. Number 9. Melkus RS1000. The Melkus RS1000, launched in 1969, was East Germany's only true attempt at a supercar, a sleek, mid-engine sports coupe built under the constraints of a communist regime that discouraged luxury and performance. Designed by race driver Heinz Melkus to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the German Democratic Republic, the RS1000 was a rare feat of ingenuity, combining racing pedigree with limited domestic resources. Built in Dresden, only 101 units were produced between 1969 and 1979. The car featured a fiberglass body mounted on a modified ladder frame chassis derived from the Wartburg 353. Its most iconic feature was a pair of gull-wing doors, giving it a dramatic, exotic profile reminiscent of Western supercars like the Mercedes 300 SL or Lamborghini Miura. Power came from a mid-mounted, water-cooled, two-stroke 992cc Wartburg engine, tuned with 3 carburetors to produce 68 horsepower at 4,500 RPM. Paired with a 5-speed manual transmission, the RS1000 could reach a top speed of 165 kilometers per hour or 102 miles per hour, a staggering figure in a country where most cars struggled to hit 60 miles per hour. Suspension and braking components were sourced from Trabant and Wartburg models, while the clutch came from the Barkus B1000 van. To buy one, East Germans needed proof of motorsport activity, making ownership a privilege reserved for elite racers and well-connected insiders. The RS1000 remains a symbol of Cold War-era ambition, a communist supercar born from passion, ingenuity, and defiance of ideological limits. Number 8. Mosvich G1 and G2. The Mosvich G1 and G2 were Soviet racing prototypes developed in the mid-1950s, a time when motorsport was barely tolerated in the USSR. Created by engineer I.A. Gladilin at the Mosvich factory, the G1 debuted in 1955 as the first purpose-built Soviet race car. It featured a lightweight aluminum body and a rear engine layout, borrowing heavily from aircraft design principles. Despite its sleek, low-slung profile and open-wheel configuration, the G1 was powered by a modest 1074cc MZMA 405 inline-4 flathead engine, producing just 70 horsepower. To boost performance, engineers fitted 4 carburetors sourced from the IZH-49 motorcycle. The car's top speed was reportedly 190 km per hour or 118 miles per hour, though its underpinnings were far less exotic. Due to budget constraints, the suspension, brakes, and wheels were scavenged from the Mosvich 401, a basic post-war sedan. In 1956, the G1 evolved into the G2, which featured a more enclosed body for improved aerodynamics. Later iterations of the G2 reverted to open-wheel designs and adopted the newer MZMA 407 engine, still equipped with 4 carburetors, but offering slightly better performance. Despite their underwhelming power plants, the G1 and G2 were raced internally until 1963, serving as testbeds for Soviet motorsport engineering. They never competed internationally, nor were they mass-produced, but they laid the groundwork for future Soviet race cars. These prototypes embodied the paradox of communist concept vehicles, bold in design, constrained by ideology, and powered by whatever parts could be salvaged from the state's limited automotive arsenal. Number 7. Shakakota 110 Supersport Ferret Vampire Car. The Shakakota 110 Supersport, developed in Czechoslovakia in 1971 under the internal designation Type 724, was a radical concept car that looked like it belonged in Star Trek. Designed as a rally prototype, it featured a futuristic wedge-shaped fiberglass body, gullwing-style access where the entire cockpit, including windshield and roof, lifted upward, and a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout. Its original power plant was a 1,107cc inline-4 from the Shakakota 110L Rally, producing 73 horsepower, later upgraded to a 1,147cc engine tuned to 104 horsepower. Despite modest output, its lightweight 898-kilogram construction, the car debuted at the 1972 Brussels Motor Show, where Western media praised its design. Road and Track even rated it above an Aston Martin prototype. However, domestic reception was lukewarm due to its angular styling and unconventional features like 6 retractable headlights and 16 rear lights arranged in 2 rows. Its true fame came in 1981 when it was transformed into the sinister Ferret vampire car for the cult Czech horror film Upír z Feratu. Repainted black with red accents, fitted with a massive rear wing and new fascias, it starred as a blood-powered race car that drained its drivers through the accelerator pedal. The car became a pop culture icon and now resides in the Shakakota Auto Museum in Mlada Boleslav. The Shakakota 110 Supersport remains one of the most bizarre and beloved communist concept cars ever built. Number 6. Luaz Proto. The Luaz Proto was an experimental off-road concept developed in the 1980s by the Lutsk automobile plant in the Ukrainian SSR. Known for producing rugged utilitarian vehicles like the Luaz 969M, the factory pushed boundaries with the Proto, a machine that prioritized extreme terrain capability over aesthetics or comfort. It was never intended for mass production. Instead, it served as a testbed for advanced articulation and drivetrain configurations suited to military and rescue operations. The Proto featured a skeletal, minimalist body with exposed mechanical components and virtually no styling cues. Its design focused on function, ultra-high ground clearance, portal axles, and a fully independent suspension system that allowed each wheel to articulate dramatically over obstacles. This gave it unmatched off-road ability, capable of crawling over boulders, trenches, and swampy terrain with ease. The frame was tubular and lightweight, built to endure harsh conditions without excess weight. Power came from a modest 4-cylinder engine sourced from existing Luaz or ZAZ models, typically producing under 60 horsepower. However, the Proto's low gearing and torque-focused transmission allowed it to tackle gradients in terrain that would immobilize conventional 4x4s. It also experimented with locking differentials and flexible chassis mounts to improve traction and stability. Though never officially cataloged or widely photographed, the Luaz Proto remains a legendary ghost in Soviet automotive lore. a brutalist crawler that embodied the USSR's obsession with conquering nature through mechanical ingenuity, even if it meant sacrificing every trace of style or comfort. Number 5. Trabant P601 Electric Prototype. In 1981, deep behind the Iron Curtain, East German engineers at VEB Sachsenring developed an electric prototype based on the ubiquitous Trabant P601, a bold experiment in alternative propulsion decades before Tesla made EVs mainstream. The prototype was part of a limited research initiative exploring non-combustion drivetrains, driven by fuel scarcity and environmental concerns. While the standard P601 featured a 594cc two-stroke engine producing 26 horsepower, the electric version replaced it with a compact DC motor powered by lead-acid batteries. The electric drivetrain was mounted in the front, maintaining the P601's front-wheel drive layout. Battery packs were housed under the rear seat and trunk, giving the car a range of approximately 50 to 60 kilometers on a full charge, with a top speed of around 60 kilometers per hour. Charging was done via standard East German 220-volt outlet, requiring up to 10 hours for a full recharge. The car retained its Duraplast body, a composite made from recycled cotton and phenol resins, which kept weight low and corrosion resistance high. Only a handful of prototypes were built, and none entered mass production due to cost, limited infrastructure, and lack of political support. Still, the electric Trabant was a remarkable technical achievement for its time, especially in a centrally planned economy with minimal access to Western innovation. It proved that even under communist constraints, engineers could envision a cleaner, quieter future. Today, the 1981 Trabant P601 electric prototype stands as a forgotten pioneer, East Germany's silent, smoky answer to the electric car revolution. Number 4. V-Knight PT. The V-Knight PT was a pod-shaped minibus prototype developed in the 1960s by the USSR's All-Union Scientific Research Institute of Technical Aesthetics, under the direction of visionary designer Yuri Dolmatovsky. Conceived not as a production vehicle, but as a rolling laboratory for ergonomic studies, the PT was a radical departure from Soviet automotive norms. Its bulbous, lounge-like form prioritized interior space, accessibility, and passenger comfort, and approached decades ahead of its time. The PT featured a low floor and wide sliding doors, allowing easy entry for passengers with strollers or luggage. Inside, it offered sofa-style seating for 3, plus a fold-out 4th seat facing rearward. The layout emphasized social interaction and spatial efficiency, with ample legroom and luggage space integrated into the cabin. Unlike traditional Soviet taxis like the GAZ M21T, the PT was designed to streamline boarding and maximize comfort, reflecting Western design principles rarely seen in communist vehicles. Mechanically, it was based on Mosvich components, including a transversely mounted rear engine and compact drivetrain. Though never mass-produced, the PT was showcased at exhibitions to demonstrate the potential of design-led innovation in public transport. Its dramatic lines, panoramic windshield, and bubble-like silhouette made it look like a sci-fi shuttle, more utopian than utilitarian. Today, the V-Knight PT survives as a museum piece and design icon, representing the USSR's brief flirtation with human-centered automotive design. It wasn't built for roads, it was built for ideas, a rolling manifesto of what Soviet transport could have been. Number 3. ZIL 4102. The ZIL 4102 was the Soviet Union's final ambitious attempt to build a domestic luxury car that could rival Western executive sedans. Developed in 1987 by Zavod imeni Likhacheva, the 4102 was envisioned as a modern alternative to the aging ZIL 41041 limousine, with styling and features inspired by the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and Cadillac Seville. Only 3 prototypes were built before the collapse of the USSR halted development entirely. Unlike previous ZILs, The 4102 featured unibody construction, a first for the brand, making it lighter and more structurally advanced. It was half a meter longer than the GAZ Volga, but weighed 500 kilograms less than the ZIL 41041. Designers used fiberglass for the roof, trunk lid, hood, and bumpers to reduce weight and improve fuel efficiency. 3 engine options were planned: a 4.5-liter V6, a 6.0-liter V8, and a massive 7.7-liter V8 producing 315 horsepower, capable of accelerating the car from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 10.5 seconds. Fuel consumption ranged from 18 to 21 liters per 100 kilometers depending on speed, and interior appointments included leather seats, air conditioning, electric seat adjustment, and a 10-speaker audio system with cassette and CD player, luxuries unheard of in most Soviet cars. The 2 prototypes were nicknamed Mishka and Reka, affectionate nods to Mikhail Gorbachev and his wife Raja. The ZIL 4102 remains a tantalizing what-if of Soviet automotive history, a sleek, powerful limousine that died with the empire that built it. Number 2. Tatroplan Concept. The Tatroplan Concept, officially designated Tatra T600, was developed in Czechoslovakia between 1946 and 1947 and entered production in 1948. Designed by Joseph Chalupa, Vladimir Poplar, František Kardas, and Hans Ledwinka, it was a streamlined rear-engine sedan that embodied radical aerodynamic thinking in a post-war communist state. The name Tatroplan fused Tatra with plan, referencing both the Soviet 5-year economic plan and the Czech word for airplane, a nod to its aviation-inspired design. The car featured a monocoque fastback body with a drag coefficient of just 0.32, rivaling many modern vehicles. Its teardrop shape, rear fin, and integrated fenders were directly influenced by the aerodynamic theories of Paul Gérard. The engine was a 1,952cc air-cooled flat-four mounted at the rear, producing 52 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. It used a 4-speed manual transmission and independent suspension, transverse leaf springs up front, and torsion bars with swing axles at the rear. Interior design was equally advanced, with noise insulation between the cabin and engine bay, a V-shaped windshield, and seating for 6. Despite its futuristic form, the Tatroplan was intended as a large family car and was exported widely. A total of 6,342 units were built between 1948 and 1952, including several racing and diesel prototypes. The Tatroplan Concept remains one of the most aerodynamically sophisticated cars ever produced under communist rule, a rolling wind tunnel that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film, not a planned economy. And at number 1, the RAFM1 Roxanna. The RAFM1 Roxanna was a sleek minivan prototype developed in 1989 by Rigas Autobusu Fabrika in Latvia, then part of the USSR. Intended to replace the aging RAF 2203, the Roxanna was a bold leap forward in design and engineering. Its smooth aerodynamic lines and modern proportions looked more like something from General Motors in a Soviet factory. The project was developed in collaboration with the British firm International Automotive Design, which helped refine the bodywork and interior layout. The Roxanna featured a front-mounted ZMZ 406 2.3-liter inline-4 engine with fuel injection, paired with a 5-speed manual transmission sourced from UAZ. It retained rear-wheel drive like its predecessor, but introduced a front-engine layout with the powertrain isolated from the passenger cabin, an improvement in safety and noise reduction. Suspension components were borrowed from the GAZ 3105, and the steering system was adapted from the Ford Transit, reflecting RAF's effort to modernize using available parts. The cabin was designed to seat 9 passengers comfortably, with improved ergonomics and passive safety features. The prototype was completed and sent to the UK for final design tweaks, but the collapse of the USSR in 1991 halted all production plans. RAF's financial troubles deepened, and only one Roxanna prototype was ever built. It was lost after the factory's bankruptcy in 1998, rediscovered in Ventspils in 2017, and now resides in the Riga Motor Museum. The RAFM1 Roxanna remains a striking symbol of the late Soviet Union's ambition, a minivan that almost bridged the East and West. From boxy beast built for party elites to space-age prototypes no citizen would ever drive, these communist concept cars reveal a world where innovation clashed with ideology. While Americans enjoyed the thrill of choice and the roar of V8 engines, citizens behind the Iron Curtain drove what the state allowed and dreamed in secret. These machines weren't just vehicles, they were snapshots of regimes trying to prove they could match Western innovation without Western freedom. In the end, many of these cars never made it past the drawing board, but they offer a fascinating glimpse into a system that ran on control instead of competition. It's a strange, often surreal chapter of automotive history, one you likely never saw during the Cold War. Which concept surprised you the most? Or did we miss a favorite oddball from behind the curtain? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think about these forgotten mechanical dreams.